everyone, it's Carly Hall, and today I'm going to do a tutorial using the new foil tool. I just received this and I am really excited to show you how it works. So if you haven't heard of this new tool, it was just released by Cricut. It is a foil tool and it's very similar to an embossing tool. So it has a housing, and I'll show you what comes with the kit. In the kit you get the housing and then you get these 3 tips. Each of the tips has a different line on it. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and that determines the thickness of your foil line. So 1 being fine, 2 being medium, and 3 being bold. So I'm going to use the bold one for our demo. And to install it, you're going to click on the plunger, hold that down, and then stick the tip in. The lines will be on the outside, and you'll stick that in. There's a little magnet, and you'll release the plunger, and that will be installed. It's not going anywhere. This tool only works in the Explore machines and the Maker machines. It does not fit in the Cricut Joy, unfortunately. So I will show you how to install it a little bit later on. It will sit in Tool Clamp. Never know what it's called. Carriage? Clamp B. I think it's called Clamp B. It'll fit in there and we'll get foiling. Also in the kit, you have a instructional booklet, which is super helpful. It explains everything that comes in the kit as well. So you have your housing and your 3 tips, 12 pieces of foil to start off with, but I do recommend getting more because I think you'll be hooked. Some tape. I don't recommend their tape. I think I'll show you why I don't like it, and we'll see if I can catch it on camera. But the tape for me wasn't holding it down well enough, so I'll show you what I mean. And then it also has steps on how to use your software. So really helpful. I will also go over everything in this booklet in this tutorial. The foil sheets are pressure sensitive, so when you apply pressure to these sheets, the foil will transfer onto whatever surface is behind it. So the surfaces you can transfer the foil onto really include anything that will fit in your machine. So you could transfer on leather, paper, a notebook, wood, really anything that you can think of. So today I'm going to be demoing some paper, but you can try all the different techniques. Okay, so let me show you the samples that I've made, and let's talk a little bit more about this pressure sensitive foil. So I'm going to show you other foils I own and unfortunately why they don't work. I've already received questions about if the mink foil works, and the mink foil is toner reactive, so that one does not work. I've also seen if the foil foil works, and this is heat activated foil, so that also is out. And then the glaminator foil is also heat activated, and well, heat activated but reacts with the toner. So these 2 are the same type of foils. So these both are out. And then the deco foil is used with adhesive. So I thought maybe this would work, but unfortunately I couldn't get it to work. I'm going to keep on playing around with this one because this is the only one I have hope for. The other foils that I know will work are the silhouette foil that you use with the embossing tool. So I know that one will work since it is pressure activated. But definitely not these 3, the foil quilt, mink, and glaminator foils. And jury's still out on this one, so I'll keep on testing. So now that we've talked about foils, I also want to talk about base materials. So I tried some base materials, 4 different types of paper to show you today. And I also wanted to give you a tip on your tape placement. So we'll go over applying the foil to our base material, but on this sample, I put my tape a little bit over where my foil tool will run. And unfortunately, where the tape was, there wasn't enough pressure to actually transfer. So you'll just want to be cognizant of where you place that tape so that the foil tool doesn't run over it and create an uneven transfer. So a little tip there that I wanted to call out, because when I'm learning these things, I often make a lot of mistakes and I want you to avoid that one. So leaving a little margin for your foil is recommended. So these 4 types of papers all worked. My favorite one was the Score and Emboss paper, and I will put a link to all the products in the video description. So check those out. This is a product by Silhouette. It's actually for their embossing tool, and you can emboss really fun designs onto it. And the foil tool, when it comes down and applies pressure, it does kind of emboss it, and then the foil sits in that groove. So the impression that it leaves is really nice. It's pretty detailed. It's not super subtle, so I can actually feel it. So this was my top favorite. I loved this one. I thought I was going to really like the letterpress paper. I like it that it's thick and it's more like a mat board, But when the foil tool ran over it, the foiling wasn't as even. So it left a great impression, looks debossed, but unfortunately the foil didn't transfer as well. I'm still going to use the letterpress paper in the tutorial today since I want a thicker weight paper, and it ended up looking great. I'll show you the project that I made. And I think with the bigger images, it actually transfers a little bit better and more consistently. So we are going to be making this project today. Both cardstocks worked really well. I thought that maybe the smooth and the textured cardstock wouldn't have enough dimension, but even though it's not as groovy, the grooves are definitely not noticeable, it's more subtle. The foil sticks on there and it looks really great. So really impressed. Again, I will put links to the products in the video description. But other than that, for paper, I haven't found anything that hasn't worked yet. Overall, I'm really satisfied with these 4 tests. If there's other materials that you want me to try that you don't want to try, leave me a comment and let me know what materials you would like to see me foil on. Okay, so now that we're good there, I am going to grab my machine and show you how to install the blade. So I have my bold tip already installed, so that is going to sit in clamp B, and I'm going to close that in there, making sure it's completely seated, and clamp that in. Again, this tool will only fit in the Maker machines and Explore machines, and then if you didn't know, your machine also has some tool storage, so you can put your extra tips on this magnetic strip. So let's go over to Design Space and design our project. In Design Space, I have a blank canvas, and if you want to foil an image like flowers or anything that you can think of, let me show you the flowers. I forgot to show you that. So I foiled these flowers, and this is where my project went a little awry because I used the Cricut tape and it just kind of crumbled up. The design was supposed to go all the way over the paper, but the foil crumbled and it was kind of a nightmare. So this is the result of when the foil came off, but the top looks really good. So if you wanted to foil an image like this, I want to show you some options on how to find good imagery. So in Design Space, you can click Images. And when you land in Images, usually you'll land on this page. Right here, you can click this hyperlink and say Browse All Images. And then over on the left-hand side, this will usually be minimized here, we can choose Art Type and choose Draw Only. The Draw Only images work really good with things that need to be single lines, like engraving or foiling or writing with a pen. So all of these will work really well, and then you can search through the images. So if you wanted to find that flower pattern that I used, you can search and then find these images. The one thing I found when I was using images like this, and I'm not sure if Cricut is aware of this, but when I went to go slice it to work on my place card, I drew a rectangle over it so that I could make it fit on my place card, whatever dimension, and I wanted to slice off the stems. So typically what you do is you would just slice it, but when I did that, I got this result. So I reached out to my friends at Cricut to make sure that they were aware of this issue, because unfortunately, that's not going to work for our project. So just be aware that that is an issue, and I have informed Cricut, so make sure to report that if you're seeing that in draw images as well. So since that was an issue, I opted not to do a draw image, and instead we're going to do a beginner lesson and talk about text. So grab your text tool and type out any word that you want. I'm just using my name. And right now, if I were to change this to be foiled, I'll show you what happens. Up here at the top, the line type, it's cut right now, so Cricut thinks I want to cut this out of a black material. But say I want to foil it, I can come down and foil it, but it will follow the cut path that my Cricut normally would follow. And I want a single line stroke, so this font won't work for me. In order to find a font that will work, you can navigate up to the font toolbar here, and you can click on the Cricut tab and then filter it to writing fonts. Cricut has a ton of writing fonts that you can use that are single line. So if you want to try any of these out, you can click them, and you can see that there is a writing style for each of them. Then when you choose a line type foil, now I'm not having that bubble letter effect. I have a system font that I want to use, so I'm going to clear my filters, but check out all of Cricut's writing fonts. There's lots of good ones. My favorite right now, though, are Dixie Type Co. fonts, and I'll link to her shop. She has a ton of great ones, and she just introduced sketch fonts. So you can see this is a sketch font. Here's a sketch font, and here's one down here, and there's actually one more. I'm going to use the Dixie Type Co. Honeymoon Sketch, and I think it's adorable, so it looks so cute. And then I'm going to make sure that my line type is set to that foil. So again, Just double check that your line type says foil and it's on the correct tip that you want to use. You can also change the color of the foil, and you can choose any of the colors that Cricut has offered right now. I'm sure that they're going to expand their collection of colors, but we're going to use gold, so that's good to go. After we're done with our image, we can determine the placement on our final place card. So I'm making a place card that's 2 inches by 4 inches wide, so I'm going to add a rectangle just so I know how big to make my design. And we'll send that to the back. We can resize our name to be as big or as small as you want. You can add any embellishments, and you can make it look however you want it to look. Now the rectangle, you don't need to use it. So I'm going to show you a couple techniques. So if I hide this rectangle, because I'm not going to cut it since my place card is already cut, and I click Make It, I can drag this and place it wherever I want on my mat. I do, however, have to eyeball the 2 inches by 4 inches. If you're comfortable eyeballing it, since it's not too bad to eyeball it, you absolutely can do that. I am more of a perfectionist, so I like to, oops, I already have my rectangle on there. Let me delete those, got a little rectangle happy. I already have my rectangle and it's already all centered up for me. So we're gonna center that up. It wasn't centered up. So we're gonna center all that up. And then I'm gonna use that as a guide. Instead of having it cut it though, since I already have my place card cut, I'm going to hack this a bit and I'm gonna tell my machine to score it. This is a hack. So if I click Make It now, those two things aren't held together. So I want to attach them so that they are held together. And you just highlight both and then click Attach. Now they'll stick together when I click Make It. When I move this around, I have that perfect 2 inch by 4 inch rectangle. So I know exactly where to put it. So I'm just going to pick any place on the mat. I've been sticking to the 6 inch area since my place card is a little bit long and I feel like that's a good area. You could leave it up in the corner, but for me, since there's this 1/8 inch of a margin on the sides, I like to move it inward just a bit. So I am going to put it on the 6 inch line, 6 by 1. So 6 horizontal, 1 vertical. Again, that's completely up to you on where you want to put it. Then we're going to continue on and connect to our machine. Once your machine is connected, choose the material that you're using. Medium cardstock worked for all 4 of those paper samples that I used. And then you'll notice here that it's recommending the scoring wheel. Now, the Cricut will force you to have the scoring wheel because it will run over to the machine detection, the blade detection, and it will ask you if your blade is in there. And if it's not, then it will make you put that blade in. I don't want it to detect the scoring wheel because I'm actually not scoring. So again, we're gonna hack it a little bit and I'm gonna say, use the scoring stylus. If you watch my writing tutorial, I also teach you the same way to address your envelopes. So we're gonna apply that and then we're going to set up our machine with our mat and our material and the foil. All right, so we're going to set up our project. I'm going to use one of my place cards that I already had and I'm going to line that up with the 6 inch line across and the 1 inch down. We're just going to line that up. For your foil, you want to make sure to cut a piece that covers your entire project, but doesn't go onto your mat. You can see here that if it goes onto your mat, it will transfer onto that mat, and that is on there, and you just have to, deal with it, kind of scratch it off, but it's pretty stuck on there. So I'm going to cut a piece of foil that is 4 inches by 4 inches, and then we'll apply this onto our project. The reason that I have my foil go all the way over my project blank is if you only cut a piece that covers the bottom part, when you go to tape it down, it will shred your project when you peel it off. So I've determined that I like taping it over the edges so that when I peel it off, I'm not ruining my final projects like this. Like I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of the tape. I just don't feel like it's sticky enough and it's not really thick either. So you can absolutely try it. I think I have a photo of when it balled up on me, and that's why I just don't use it anymore, and instead I use masking tape. But of course you can try it. I'll try to throw in that photo of when my project got eaten by my Cricut machine. So I prefer to use just regular masking tape, and I'm going to grab the bottom of my project, and I'm just going to line it up with the place card and stick it onto my mat. And then the next piece of tape, I'm going to grab the top and pull it taut, but not super tight, so it kind of just presses out really evenly. And then I'll go to my sides and do the same thing. And there is our foil on our project. Again, the foil, I like it going all the way to the edge of my project blank. If you are cutting your project, that doesn't matter as much, but since this is a pre-cut project, I like to bring my foil all the way to the edge. Our machine is all loaded up with the foil tool. I did want to call out that you will want to move your star wheels. I'm not sure if you can see that. These star wheels all the way over to the side because you don't want those running over the foil and leaving any impressions. So we're going to load our mat in. And then everything is set up in Design Space, so I'll click the flashing C. So right now it's doing that scoring action where there is no scoring tool in Tool Carrier A. So again, you don't need a scoring tool, and it's actually not scoring anything. Design Space will make sure that I have everything loaded in, so you'll just want to confirm that that bold tip is installed and your foil is taped down, and then you'll click the flashing C. If your tool is not installed and you have to move your tool carriage over, you can kind of pull it over so that you can open your clamp and install that. I know I was a little bit worried about doing that because my carriage ended up all the way over in a spot where I couldn't get to it. So you can just pull it over and then click the flashing C. Once it's done, you can unload, and then we can peel our tape off of our project. And you can use the foil for additional projects. So you can cut this up and use it again. This whole side is still usable, and even the area around here. And you can see how easily the foil came off, and then we'll pop our place card off the mat. And I just did this bottom side here, and it looks perfect. So it's really easy to add a little bit of sparkle to your place cards and jazz them up a little bit. So now let me show you how to do the dipping technique so that you can add a little color. I'm going to make myself a place card. So I just used my paper trimmer and I trimmed it down to be 4 inches long. And then it's 4 inches wide as well. And then we're going to take it and put it on the 2-inch mark. And what I did to score mine is I actually did a thin cut. So I used the extra piece and I just stuck that on top of it. And then I cut through that. So that gave me a perfect score. You can also use a bone folder and score along the line like this. Let me grab one. So you can use this as a score line and use a bone folder, and that will also score. I felt like the cut score folded a little bit better than my bone folder, but with your bone folder you can press that out as well. So a couple options, but making place cards is really easy. You could also have your Cricut score and cut them as well. So now we can dip this and give it some life. So my mixture here is some paint, just acrylic paint and water. And I just eyeballed my ratio and I dipped some paper until I was happy with the color that came out. And I stirred it up with a paintbrush so that nothing was settled on the bottom. And once I had everything mixed, I took my little cards, I dipped them and spun them so it gave it a little bit of a wave effect. Now you can re-dip them as many times as you want, and that will give you a ombre effect where you have different layers of colors. So I let mine dry in between and then I would just dip them again, and you can use any color that you want. And like I said, you can foil them before or after. And if you do it before, then you'll just want to let them dry completely before you stick them onto your Cricut mat. So that is super easy to do. I also dipped the flower, one that I showed you earlier, just for fun. And you can do all the sides one side, and then I would probably just press this in a book or something to make it a little bit flatter. So this is the score on embossed paper, and there is a little bit more of a ripple on this one, whereas the letterpress paper is more rigid. So it does dry pretty straight, and I didn't have to press this out or anything. All right, I think that is everything I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If there are things that I missed or questions that you had that I didn't answer, make sure to leave them in the comments because I'm happy to answer them. I'm also happy to test other materials and project blanks if you're curious about what things you can foil. I know there's a lot to cover on this topic, so hopefully this tutorial is just the tip of the iceberg and you'll see a lot more in the future. If you are a Cricut user and you have questions about the foil tool or any Cricut crafts, make sure to check out my Facebook group, Cricut Crafts with Carly Hall. I know a lot of people in there are asking about the foil tool versus the foil quill. And with my first impression, I would recommend the foil tool. It's a lower price point and it also is integrated with the software. So you're not hacking it with drawing and, having to use all these different methods to unload the foil and then take the foil off and cut it. It's all integrated with this tool and the line type. Unfortunately, you can't use this line type with the foil tool since the foil tool goes in the pin carriage A and this one goes in clamp B. So that's a bummer because I was really hoping that I was going to make it a little bit easier to use the foil tool, or the foil quill rather. So that's my first impression. I would love to hear your feedback, and if you have the tool, what do you like and what do you dislike? Let me know in the comments. All right, I'll see you in the next video.